Welcome to the Power of Love show, sponsored by the D.D. Jackson Foundation, where we shine a light on loss and grief and how it impacts our lives. We are here to provide hope, resources, and a community so no one feels alone in their grief. Enjoy the show. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today on the Power of Love show, sponsored by the D.D. Jackson Foundation. I am TJ Jackson, and with me is my eldest brother, Taj Jackson.
What's going on, TJ?
How are you, man?
Good.
So you guys, the watchers, the viewers, you may be listening to us as well. We are live, of course, on the Power of Love on YouTube and Facebook, but you can also be listening to us via podcasts. Yes, this show is. What would be the word, Taj? The show is recorded into a podcast. It's already recorded, but it's uploaded as a podcast as well. That's the word. So if you are a podcast listener, you can check us out there, get all access to all of our episodes that way, and still having a great, immenseful learning experience through your ears. So I just want to make sure everyone knows that, in case you just know us from YouTube and Facebook. A podcast is another option. Taj.
Yes.
I have a disclaimer to read, but I wanted to ask you, since it's your birthday, if you wanted to read it.
To read it? No.
That's something you don't want to do, huh?
No, not for my birthday. No. I don't
Come
want
on, Taj Jackson. No?
No, definitely. No.
All right. Well, I guess I'll be the one who needs to do it. We are not licensed therapists. We are just ordinary people who've experienced loss in our lives. We've been impacted by it, and we've learned from it. And we like to share our opinions in an attempt to help you get through whatever it is you are going through. Saying that, if you need professional help, we urge you to seek it and to find it. Do not just rely on us.
Exactly.
For those of you who watch us every week and listen to us every week, welcome back, and thanks for being so supportive, for joining us. We have another great show lined up. But before we get into that aspect, I do want to say, as I just mentioned, it's Taj Jackson's birthday, so big happy birthday to you.
Thank you.
Taj, anything you want to share as the birthday boy?
No, I have a baby downstairs crying. So if you hear just ignore that aspect of it. But everything's going great. I'm so blessed in that way. And I told my wife, because she asked what I wanted to do, and I was like, I'm just happy to have, a family that loves me and all that stuff. And you really have to, know your blessings in that way. So it was I'm not doing anything special in that way. And I don't really want to, but.
Well, Sine says, happy birthday, Taj. Love you, Sine. And Lena says, hello to you both. Quickly, just want to wish you a very happy birthday, Taj. Thanks for coming on here today with the day that's in it. Hope you're enjoying your day. 21 again, isn't it?
It's 18, actually, but yeah.
It's 18. Don't add more years.
I'm stretching it. Yeah, I go down. It's like I'm like Benjamin Button. I keep going down a year every time.
Either way, Taj, like Lena and Sine said, happy birthday. I know that's from the whole community, from the whole board, and from all the listeners. And thanks for coming today and doing the show with us. It's always better with you, of course.
And also, there, one of our listeners, Suzanne, it's her birthday today too. We share the same birthday. So
okay, well there you go. Look at Taj,
fellow listener, loyal listener. So happy birthday,
happy birthday, Suzanne. So, Taj, we also, I guess we highlighted them, but if you're listening to us, you probably didn't know those messages I just read were super chats. So,
nice.
If you're on YouTube, I think Facebook has it as well, but that's a simple way to support the foundation and what we do is through super chat. And what we try to do is when we see a super chat like Lena's, we always try to highlight it so that way you guys can get your message, and it's a cool way for you guys to help contribute to the foundation and just be more engaged in part of the show.
Yes.
So
and every dollar amount goes to supporting our foundation.
There you go,
we don't make a cent out of it. None of our board members get paid for what they do. They're all volunteer. We're volunteers. So, we funnel it directly back into the community. So
Taj, well said. And I'm very happy you mentioned it because I usually do, but I forgot.
You do. You forgot this time, but I'm proud of that. With our foundation in that way.
Yeah, it's all out of the love of what we're doing and helping others. So and I love that about that. Okay, Taj. So, are you ready to get in the show? Or is there any more birthday talks we need to talk about?
No, let's go.
Well, we'll just do this real quick super chat from my life, my hurdles, and my survival. Happy birthday, Taj. Hope you have a wonderful day. Love you. Merch model. TJ knows, and I do know. I do know the one and only Bommy. All right, so here we go. Taj, on today's episode of the Power of Love Show, we are kicking off yet another mental health series. We did this a while back, and it was fantastic. We love doing these multi-part series periodically throughout the year where we sit down with medical professionals in hopes of learning tools and techniques to better protect our mental health as we navigate the obstacles we face in life. So on today's show, we welcome a friend of DDJF and returning guest, licensed marriage and family therapist, Mr. Cliff Owens. If you remember from his previous appearance on the Power of Love show in November of last year, Cliff joined us to share his professional expertise in a discussion about how to manage our emotions. Cliff is back today to kick off this mental health series to discuss something that I'm sure is on a lot of people's minds. Will life ever feel normal again? And how do we face the uncertainty of the future? Cliff is a licensed therapist with nearly 15 years of experience working with patients ranging from preteens to adults facing anxiety, behavioral issues, depression, addiction, codependency, self-esteem, stress, trauma, and PTSD, just to name a few. You can learn more about Cliff by visiting his website, which is www.odysseyforpersonalwellness.com. Without much further ado, everyone, please welcome to the Power of Love, the one and only Mr. Cliff Owens. How are you, Mr. Cliff Owens?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Great, man. Thank you for joining us again to the Power of Love show. Your expertise and knowledge was very beneficial for our community the first time you were on, and it's just wonderful to have people like you return back and give us more of your knowledge and more of your time. So I really want to thank you for joining us.
My pleasure.
And before I get to asking you some questions, Cliff, I should say this to our community. If you guys have questions, feel free to comment. You don't have to super chat questions. If you want to, you can, but I am going through the questions simultaneously. And I want this to be something where you guys can get your questions answered and not just Taj and I deciding what to ask. With that said, though, Cliff, thank you so much again for joining us to discuss navigating uncertainty. Yeah. I'll begin by asking, have you seen a spike in patients expressing feelings of uncertainty about the future of their lives and the world around them since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic and the restrictions and lockdowns that came with COVID-19?
I haven't seen an uptick since like the opening and then closing down again. I think it was so short that just kind of people just went through it like, all right, what are we doing now, right? But I think what people are really getting frustrated with is the amount of isolation and the intensity of their boredom that can lead to people being depressed, listless, indecisive, and starting to feel cynical and pessimistic about their future.
Yeah. You said the phrase and it just escaped my mind, but I think you said maybe pessimistic with their boredom.
Yeah, with boredom. Yeah.
Yeah, that just seems so in line with how so many people I know are feeling. Like it feels like we're slowly getting back. I mean, with the Delta variant, things seem to be, going the wrong way, but it seemed like we were slowly getting back to our normal selves, but we still haven't achieved this complete normalcy.
Right.
What advice would you give to someone who is getting pessimistic and thinking that this is now the unfortunate new realism?
Yeah. What I would recommend is how we use things in life determines everything, And so even if it's a really difficult moment, a long-term moment, How we use it is a massive influence to what we get out of it. And so for people who have a career that's struggling and they want to stay in that career, sometimes it's better to be cautious about how you use your mind, So the mind's going to see it's a problem-solving machine. And so it will obsess over a problem until it comes up with a possible solution, right? And if you're in a heart space that's negative, you may come up with more negative questions, more negative planning, okay? So that's really important to do. You want to be able to look at yourself like, where am I coming from in my thinking? Do I have a sense of possibility in my heart? Do I have a sense of hope? And if you don't, do the best you can to shift. Clean off your plate, use some method that that would help you to get to a place where you're creating a future that is enticing and positive and gives you some sort of hope in life, okay? And then from there, start asking questions, because you're going to create a plan, and the questions you're going to have are relevant to actually creating something, okay? You don't want to reinforce your cynicism because you don't know if it's actually true. Okay? It's speculation, all right, that my future is going to suck because this moment's suck, right? But you don't want to carry that through to your future. So my recommendation is for people to really come clear about how they're using their mind and what space they're in their heart for them to do the thinking, okay? So what I would recommend people doing is be aware of your habits to be cynical and speculate being a cynic, and to try and change it into something that's positive and create a compelling future.
Cliff, is there a tangible thing you would advise someone to do if they start to feel those negative thoughts coming?
Yeah, definitely. Give yourself a reality check. Notice that there has to be an understanding that you don't know everything, right? And that there's a possibility that things can turn out differently than you expect, all right? And so it's just really being open to something beyond your default life, okay? And attending to that and cultivating that. And one thing that can be really helpful if someone has a tendency to be obsessive in their thinking is to create a plan for how they're going to respond to when they go back to work, for what they can do, all right? And when you have a plan, that kind of can calm the mind down a little bit because there's something that's being set in place, okay? So you respond, and you're responsible to the things that are within your control, that are knowable. And then for the parts that are unknowable, what I recommend people to do is to be mindful and present to their anxiety about the unknown, and learn to become comfortable with that. Because the anxiety, when you're in a relationship to the unknown, it's not always an anxious thing. It doesn't have to be that way. You can be open-hearted, you can be strong, you can be courageous, you can be empathetic in the space of not knowing what's going to happen. It doesn't have to be anxiety. That's usually our default.
I think one of the hardest things, I'm aware of the importance of being aware of negative thoughts and how you're feeling.
Right.
The question I have, is there a cool way or
there is.
an easy way to flip that from dwelling on negativity to saying, okay, I witnessed this, I sense this, but I'm going to do this about it?
Yeah. So I'm going to give you 3 things you can do. Okay. One is to just observe the natural life cycle of your feelings without reinforcing it through your thinking. You don't justify why you feel anxious. You just notice the thoughts. Focus on the physical sensations of the emotion. When I'm feeling anxious, my face gets warm, my heart tingles, I feel congested in my heart, my palms are sweaty. Then focus on that. Keep your eyes open, peripheral vision, and just write it out and breathe. That's one. Another one is we call attention release exercise. And I learned this from a meditation teacher. And you put one hand on your heart, one hand to the side, and you just notice you label what you're feeling. Okay, I'm feeling anxious. Breathe and just put your hand on your heart, hand to the side, and just tell yourself, I'm letting this go. Okay, and give it several minutes. And you'll know when you're done because your heart will feel open again, relaxed, your chest is open, and you feel calm and comfortable inside. Okay. And then another one that I use frequently even, and I teach almost every one of my clients this, is called emotional freedom technique, or they call it tapping. And I use the hand technique. You know, so you can use this on the internet. You can get the instructions off YouTube or something like that if you want to. But you create a short phrase that helps you to summarize what you're feeling anxious about. So the phrase is, even though I feel blank about blank, I love myself. So even though I feel anxious about my job application, I love myself. And then you would tap like this. Even though I feel anxious about my job application, I love myself. And the next finger, repeat, 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 repeat. Let go, just observe, right? You say I'm activated on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm at like a 6. I do one round, it goes down to a 4. I do another round, it goes down to a 2. I just observe. And I swear, I've had some intense feelings that I've let go within like 3-4 minutes.
That's fantastic.
You know, and I don't know how it works, but it does. And so I use it. I don't care. I have an explanation. These are like pressure points, right? It may be similar to EMDR. There's bifocal orientation to like my experience, but I'm not solely focused on my experience. I got something else going on too, like EMDR, eye movement, and then the trigger. So it may be something similar to that. But I teach my clients all 3 of those things at the very beginning of our treatment together, so they can practice using them. And a lot of times they resist using them because they look funny or whatever. And, you know, to me, I don't care. If it works, I want results. And that's what I do, you know. But when they give it a try, they're like, oh my God, I can't believe I struggled for 8 hours being upset. And in 5 minutes, I got this done and I was over it. And it's like an awakening to the possibility that they don't have to struggle so long.
Yeah.
You get back to actually being in your life instead of being upset.
Yes.
And you also realize how much you can let go of. Like you can let go of some very deep stuff and be free of it. And it's actually freedom. It's not denial. It's not repressing. It's not compartmentalizing. It's actually freedom. It's a big difference.
It's great. It's beautiful. I have a question. Taj, you good? I don't want to. Okay. I do have a question, and I guess this is an opinion thing. Do you, as a medical professional, believe that some of us will experience some form of like PTSD from the effects of this COVID-19 pandemic?
I think so. I think it depends on how people are moving through this time. Some people have experienced a lot of loss. Parents have died. Relatives have died. You know, they may have lost their job, you know, and their living expenses are more than government support would allow them to have, you know, so there could be, you know, and it can be a very serious thing for others. Yeah.
What do you think, what would you advise people to do on a daily basis to help protect their mental health?
I'm glad you asked that one. Exercise, exercise, exercise. Exercise is medicine. You can't lay around all day and expect to feel good. You just can't. It's just like the body's not designed to do that. It's designed for movement and rest. Movement and rest. And when we live according to human design, we're happier. And so it's really important to get out and exercise, right? Get the parts of the brain functioning that come from strain. The biochemistry, right? It flushes out the cortisol and releases other endorphins, and it just makes the body feel good. All right, that's an external process, right? And then the other one is really to really have their social contact. Okay, and very few people are really hermits naturally, you know. So if you're a passive person, you're really going to struggle if you don't up your game and be more assertive with getting your social contact in. And talk about your experience. If you're struggling, don't bottle it up, right? Communication is one of the most effective ways for controlling our feelings. And so being able to communicate and be attuned to yourself when you're talking, right? And that's how communication actually allows us to be free from some of the feeling. This is when we're spaced off and we're talking, that does nothing, right? And then if we're using arguments and rationalizations in our conversation to reinforce how we feel, we don't really get much catharsis out of it. What you really want to do is be in tune with your feelings and express the truth of those feelings, then let it be done.
Nice.
Yeah.
I love what you say about exercising. I'm doing a little journey where I'm trying to exercise 56 days in a row. And I'm on day 17, I think.
Nice.
The reason why I'm saying that, not just from the kudos I want to get from my brother Taj, but because because I have to say the whole reason why I took this journey was because I got to the highest weight I'd ever been during COVID. And I did this journey to try to slim down and feel kind of back to myself physically.
Yep.
What I didn't anticipate was the mental boost I would get, which I'm experiencing, which has now surpassed my care of losing weight.
Yeah.
And it's been such a beautiful kind of revelation that, and I've always known this. My wife's a personal trainer. I always know the importance of fitness and staying active. But even someone like me, you could forget about that. And COVID, in my opinion, put a little bit of a cloud around everyone where they got very sedentary and very did nothing. So when you said exercise, not only was it confirming for me, but it rang so true for me. I feel like I'm mentally in a very healthy place. And I feel it has a lot to do because I've done something actively for 16 straight days. So first, I will say if there's anything else you want to say on that, because I want all of our community and those who listen to us to really respect that. Don't just think of the scale as the reason why you are working out. Think of it as what it's doing for your mental health. I really, truly feel it's one, if not the best, as you said, Cliff, the best remedy for mental health struggles. But what I want to say was, do you find there being any exercises or any form of activity that is better than the other?
I'm not a trainer, but anything to get your heart rate up is going to create the chemical changes you need in your brain. So if it's fast-paced walking, fine. If it's working out with kettlebells, great. And if it's doing calisthenics, that's wonderful. Something that pushes your heart a little bit and allows the biochemistry to adjust and get the endorphins out. Okay. Yeah. And I do have a comment around exercise. And one of the things that people seem to have a love-hate relationship to exercise. And so one thing that can be really helpful is what you mentioned is like, don't ignore the emotional benefit you're getting, luxuriate in it. Okay, it becomes a reinforcer that this is something that's really wonderful, and over time the barriers to exercise start to dwindle when you really appreciate the mood enhancements and you take time to appreciate it. It doesn't have to be for a half hour, just a couple minutes. Appreciate the effect that it's having on your body.
I think it's I don't know if it's my age. I don't know if it's the time. I don't know if we're just slowly figuring out, but I'm hoping the fitness industry starts to lean into that more and stops advertising their gym memberships and exercises as to lose weight, but for mental health and for an emotional boost. I can't really imagine that. I mean, I could imagine a commercial for fitness with some model in perfect shape, but I'm waiting on the day when we change that narrative in our society where it becomes you get a fitness membership or you become active for emotional health and mental health. And I'm hoping it's moving that way. I feel like it is, again, maybe because I'm just maturing, but I don't feel like we'd be having this conversation, or at least we'd be open in this, or I'd be understanding it 20 years ago. But I love the fact that we're doing that. So
and I think I'm getting older too. I'm 53, and so for me, it's longevity and keeping my body healthy and my joints and stuff like that. I want to be around for a long time to see what's happening on this planet.
Mm-hmm.
So, as people age, I think their orientation does change, at least it can, into sustainable efforts and providing life balance. And that is such a fulfilling thing when you're not feeling exhausted all the time.
Yeah.
When you don't experience a burnout and then you have to sleep the whole weekend just to recover from your job. I think one of the things that's happening in COVID, people are rethinking their default life. Like, I don't want to spend 2 hours commuting.
Yeah.
It sucks.
Yeah. Miss Silent Siren has a comment. Mental health as a conversation is still too much of a taboo now for it to be linked up like that on TV. I think she's referring to my commercial. Janine says, I've been in the gym for the last 8 years. I definitely appreciate the benefits of what it has done for me physically and mentally. And then there was one more comment I want to say is from Constantine. It says, you are so right, TJ, about working out can open that mental health healing door. I have to exercise more again. And again, I wouldn't have mentioned it if the one and only Cliff Owens didn't mention it with his answer. But I'm just relating to it, and I really feel it. So I do
want to make one comment.
Yeah.
A lot of times people, they get a relief from exercise, but they're not actually addressing their issues. So it is a way to cope with stress. It is a way to manage your mood and stuff like that. It's not effective, and I don't think it's appropriate to have the expectations that you can just go to the gym and then things kind of work themselves out, in a pun. You have to address how you use your mind, because your mind will recreate your problems over and over again until you address how you use your mind.
Mm-hmm.
That's why it's so important. CBT has gotten so important in my practice and in my life personally, because I realize that my mind recreates things over and over again out of habit. And it has to be addressed. If someone's anxious all the time, they go to the gym to work out, that's wonderful, but you still got to address how your mind becomes so anxious.
Mm-hmm.
So don't avoid your issues just to go to the gym.
Nice.
Yeah. Well said. Thank you, Cliff. My life, my hurdles, and my story. I know this is going to be a joke. Something that raises my heart rate so that I can go look at my bank account activity during lockdown. That wasn't what I meant to post. My life, my hurdles, my survival, always with the fun in our community. So, and I keep that going, Bommy. Don't stop that. But this was what I wanted to post it for Cliff. It's a question for you from Lena Hunt. She says, I heard someone say your thoughts become your reality. What is your opinion on someone thinking that way?
I think that is a convoluted idea, and has a lot of levels to it. Mm-hmm. So if you think a lot of anxious thoughts, you will interpret situations to be anxiety provoking, right? If you're a trusting person, you don't have that experience, really. It's not as much, right? Some people use that line of thinking for manifesting things. Mm-hmm. It takes a long time to manifest something in the physical world for most people. So I think the way you think has a more immediate impact on your life if it's influencing how you would interpret stuff. If you look at, say, for instance, I have a friend, and I see them talking to somebody else, and if I'm in a moment of experiencing jealousy, I'm like, who's that friend? What are they doing over there, right? And the jealousy controls my mind, ask the questions, answer those questions, makes plans. And I go up there and I'm kind of like gruff, like, who's your friend? Right. Yeah. That's one way of interpreting it, because my mood is controlling something. If I'm a trusting person and my friend's talking to somebody else, it can be, oh, that's interesting. Let me see what's going on up there. Or I may not, because I don't care. I'm not in a state where I need to test something. Right. Mm. So that's an immediate impact on my world.
Nice.
Okay. Yeah.
April says, one of my coworkers referred to mental health as fighting the demons within. I really dislike that saying. What's your opinions on when you hear people mention mental health as fighting demons, or what's your take on this?
Depends if they mean it literally or figuratively.
Good answer. Great answer. Yeah, that's funny.
No, I do think there's a lot of value, like immense value, I want to emphasize immense, in facing the shadow side. These are places where usually our insecurities are pushed into the shadow side. And in doing the work on that side specifically, you are removing barriers to your self-expression as a human being. You're no longer confined to your insecurities, avoiding situations, triggers. You're no longer a rat in a maze. Okay. Avoiding situations because you don't want to get upset, don't get whatever hurt. And so there's a lot of work that can be done when we go into our dark side. And it's not necessarily evil. It's just things that we don't want to face, usually insecurities, hurt. So there's a lot of benefit from doing it because we create a courage in our own heart to face things that are uncomfortable. And there's a gift in it for us. It's when that comment came up, it's very analogous to Jungian psychology, where you face your demons, you face the dragon and things like that. And in the end, there's a reward. Everyone gets the reward if you do the work long enough, but the reward is different for everyone.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's a huge thing. You become fully empowered as a human being. You become a real human being.
Yeah.
Sam says, there are so many people that find a problem for any solution. How do you influence them to think or process things differently?
Blimey. That's a good question. Thanks for saving that one to the end. That's really difficult. Somebody who's that's kind of like a cynical personality. They always find fault with something. Initially, I would probably listen to them to see if there's legitimacy to their concerns. Otherwise, I wouldn't engage that too long. If they're just speculating on stuff that is manageable, a solution can be created. And I wouldn't. I might even limit my contact with people like that because they tend to take away the momentum without being committed to the risk. Okay. And so they can be really, they're not necessarily an asset. It's people who speak up against ideas sometimes are an asset because they can see things that we don't see. But sometimes it's just people just want to be a Debbie Downer. So I wouldn't modulate how much I have exposed to them, and depends on how much I respect their opinion.
That's great. Cheryl says, Cheryl wants to know, what is the best way to deal with depression and anxiety without meditation?
Exercise.
Without, I think she means medication, right?
Oh, medication, yeah.
I'm going to assume medication because I would assume meditation can only help, right?
It can. It depends. I'm going to refer some books to people at the very end that will help with this, that are on meditation. Okay. It depends if it's a biological cause or if it's caused by a situation that a person has experienced in their past or currently. And again, if it's not biological, get your medications. That's what I recommend. Okay. Unless it's very low depression, you might be able to do it through some other way. But talk to a professional and get assessed and see what's really going on. Get the facts, right? So many people are hesitant about taking medications and worry about side effects. That's understandable. But talk to a professional and see, because you may have a moderate to severe depression. That's hard to make choices when you're in that state. It really is. And just a little bit of medication can really just make your life have a lot easier, and then make healthy choices easier too, which can then create more momentum, right? If your depression and anxiety is somewhat manageable, just a pain in the butt, there's a lot that can happen with people being really careful around their diet, around not eating too much junk food, not being too sedentary, Again, learning how they use their mind. I recommend books by Albert Ellis, who was a psychologist back in the 50s. And I recommend his books because he's got a good sense of humor, and it's not as dry as CBT books. And he talks a lot about how we misuse our minds. And when you get clear about how you use your mind, you'll be amazed at how much suffering you impose on yourself. It's uncanny how much suffering we impose on ourselves because of the way we think, and we think our feelings are facts, and we caught up in that internal world responding to the external world, and it's just like we are daydreaming. We're not even conscious, right? And so having that information can really help us to like, oh, me just having an anxious moment, and here's my thoughts reinforcing my anxiety. That's a form of speculation. I don't really know this is going to happen. And taking it less seriously, yeah.
Cliff, what was the name of the author in the book? Or is there a specific one? And then the second part is, because I am a reader, is there any other book that has been written in the last 10 years that you would advise one of us to read to help understand mental health and improve our mental health?
Yeah, there's let me get them real quick.
Yeah, please.
So I like Pema Chodron, and so this one right here, Start Where You Are.
Okay, Start Where You Are.
Yeah.
By Chodron. Pema Chodron. 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 Okay.
Yeah. And then The Wisdom of No Escape, which is a really interesting title for our time.
The Wisdom of No Escape. Same author.
Yeah, same author. And Jay Earley has a family systems theory book that I think, and it's a workbook that you can use to help work through the shadow side of ourself, help work through depression. The depression, if it's circumstantial, is a protective mechanism. When you find out what its function is and that you don't need it anymore, and you're talking to your unconscious mind in a symbolic way, it can help you move through that kind of space. But you have to be willing to change, and you have to be willing to let go, and you have to let go of the rationalizations for staying depressed or anxious. You can't have the same mindset and then have a different emotional mood. You're working against yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a couple more. There's a lot of good questions coming in, but I know we're close to that time, Cliff. But I have one question, and this is an important one. If you are married to someone and they seem to be just, I hate using that. I won't even say the term, but just incredibly negative.
Yeah.
And they don't seem to be able to come out of it no matter what you do. What advice would you give that person? Because no one needs to be subjected to just negative energy for the rest of their life. And I'm not trying to tell anyone to ever get a divorce. Right. What can you do as a strong spouse to support your significant other who's struggling?
I think there has to be a serious conversation about if they're willing to even change. Right? You can't impose change on people; they just resist that. And in that conversation, there needs to be a kind of a detailed and vulnerable expression of how they're impacting you. So it's just not an intellectual thing. This isn't an abstraction. And they need to understand that they're influencing your life in a negative way, and that you don't like that, and that you want to have more freedom to do what you want and to be self-expressed and to be happy, right? And then find out, if they're willing to share, what is it that motivates them to be so negative? Why do they have to see the negative in everything? And are they willing to help themselves? If they're not willing to help themselves, you're stuck or you leave, Yeah. And so if they're not willing to change, how would they expect you to want to stick around?
Do you ever at some point recommend bringing in other people, family members, parents, brothers, sisters, kids to help make your point? Or do you think this is something that a one-on-one kind of conversation, a heartfelt, is more effective?
I I think it's depending on who you're talking to, and if there's like a domineering or controlling or denying going on, you may want to bring in family members, but if it's to that extent where they're denying what they're doing, that's pretty deep as far as a mental and emotional issue. You may want to just have them seek therapy directly.
And then one more question. If you notice this developing or getting worse, mostly, I want to say mostly due to, but you've seen it grow into something more severe during this pandemic. So in your mind, you think maybe this is part of the pandemic and maybe she'll come out of it or he'll come out of it. Basically, my question is, when is it something that needs to be discussed in a serious way versus something that seems to be possibly fleeting?
Yeah, I wouldn't wait too long. I mean, if they're not able to be responsible to the negativity they carry with them, right? As an adult, we need to be responsible to the pain we carry with us. Because if we don't, we just put it out on everyone else. And now we're causing other people to suffer. Okay. And an act of love towards ourselves and others is to be responsible to what we carry within us and to use it in a way that makes us grow. So if this is going on for weeks and weeks, I would immediately say something. Don't wait 8 months to figure it out. Like, oh, this is your life, and if they're going through this and it's been months and they're not being responsible to the negativity they carry with them, it's time for them to really, you need to let them know how they're impacting you. Yeah. I wouldn't wait forever and a day.
Cool. Thank you for that. Taj, is there anything you want to ask before we close out and we give Cliff his minute to talk about anything else he wants to?
No, it's been very educational. I had myself on mute most of it because there's a lot of noise downstairs. So I apologize for that. But yeah, you missed two super chats. One, Brandy Boyd did one, and then another $25 one that you missed that I can't find anymore. That's why I was trying to scroll.
Oh man, I can't even see.
Whoever you are, please identify yourself so we can thank you.
And thank you.
Yeah, I didn't want to interrupt in between, but I was trying to scroll and look, but I can't scroll any farther. So, but yeah, I mean, I love hearing about, this idea in terms of just taking responsibility for yourself as well. In that way, I think that's what I always give people the benefit of the doubt, but at the same time, they have to, want to change, as you said, in terms of that.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of why the world is so crazy, is that people are not being responsible to the pain they carry with them. And they're causing other people to suffer through their reactivity and overreactivity.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking. All right, Cliff, the time has come. I've warned you about this. You've actually done this before, so you should be aware. But up to a minute, what final message? Again, it could be a movie you just saw that you liked or your favorite way to cook chocolate chip cookies. It doesn't matter. This is your minute to talk about anything you want to do and leave our audience with the final message.
Regarding the books and stuff like that, meditation does a lot for us in developing the strength of our mindfulness and our ability to accept life as it is. And kindness is being able to accept people for who they are and to treat them accordingly. Okay. And that doesn't mean being a doormat. So, and there is a limitation to people often start meditating because they want mental health as well, but those don't necessarily cross over. So if you have some mental health issues and you think meditation is going to help you, it may do so in a little bit, but you need to do them. Psychotherapy offers different tools, and oftentimes they can help resolve things much more quickly. Meditation can be very slow in some ways. Okay. So I like the two books I recommended. And through COVID, I've been experimenting with different kinds of exercise programs. I've been doing the Beachbody stuff. We've been doing kettlebells. We've been doing calisthenics, finding my groove on exercise. And I really encourage people to try something new, in the pandemic. And also to create a COVID lifestyle. What is something that serves you? what's something that helps you to grow. And we don't know how long this is going to last, to be honest with you. But to create a lifestyle where you're happy and making the most of your time. I've seen so many people waste so much time. They just sit around getting high, watching TV, and this is like, wow, I could have been, retraining in my job. I could have done something else. I could accomplish some goals, and they're really sad and depressed. I really recommend people not engaging in addictive behaviors. When you have that much time and that much boredom, which is a huge trigger for addiction, your life's gonna be a hot mess, maybe.
Yeah. Well, Cliff, thank you so much. There's so many great comments coming your way from all over the world, saying thank you for all your wisdom and information. So, and on behalf of those who didn't get to thank you on the comments, I just want to thank you. You are always very educational, very matter of fact, and just have a way of saying things in a very comforting but important way. So on behalf of the birthday boy over there and the rest of our foundation, we just want to thank you for joining us again to kick off our mental health series. Yeah. Anytime you have anything important to say, please know we are an open forum. Our community loves and adores you. And again, I just want to thank you for being on with us today.
Thank you.
All right, everyone. We will be back next Wednesday at 1 p.m. Thank you guys for joining us. Please be safe. And remember what Cliff said, take care of your mental health and get out there and do some exercise. It's super important. Taj, anything else you want to say? You're the birthday boy. You should be ending this. You're on mute, my friend.
I try to spare you guys. Just thank you, Cliff, for your great speech and everything, and your talk, and I got a lot out of it. But also thank you to all the birthday comments as well. I feel very loved.
Happy birthday.
Yeah. All right, everyone. Thank you, guys, and thank you again to those who super chatted. We will see you guys next Wednesday at 1 p.m. Adios, everyone.